Good morning. It's the 16th day of December 2017. Welcome to another edition of New Day, Saturday edition. My name is Abna Tibi. We are live on TV3 here in Accra. We're also live on 3FM 92.7. We're also streaming live on the internet around the world on 3news.com, also on our Facebook page, TV3 Ghana. As usual, we're running from now till 9:50, where we would bring conversations to a close. And before then, we would have done some interesting analysis or interrogations into topical subjects that made the headlines during the week. As usual, we encourage you to send through your text messages via WhatsApp. Our WhatsApp number is 050-06-07070. As usual, we'll display it on your screen, so look out for it and send through your remarks. We'll be happy to share them with the rest of the world. What are we looking at this morning? Indeed, it's been an interesting week. So coming up on the show this morning, we'll be looking at the probe into allegations of wrongdoing by the EC chairperson and her two deputies. Now, earlier on in the month, speculations were rife in the media that the Chief Justice had established a prima facie case against Mrs. Charlotte Osei, the Commissioner of the Electoral Commission, and her two deputies in respect of petitions received by the President earlier on in the year and forwarded to the CJ in accordance with constitutional provisions. Now, although there hasn't been any official communication from the Office of the CJ to confirm or deny the media speculations, and I must add here that indeed these processes, if indeed they are what we are seeing to be playing out, are to be held in camera, and so we do not expect any such communication from the Office of the CJ. But we've seen some pieces of evidence in the media that suggest that perhaps something like that is going on. And what are these pieces of evidence I'm referring to? We've seen the chairperson and her two deputies in the company of their lawyers on the premises of the Office of the CJ. We've also heard the chairperson of the EC demand or request a copy of the petition that was forwarded to the CJ from the Office of the Presidency, and we are told that the Office of the Presidency referred her to the Office of the Chief Justice for the copy of the petition. We do also recall that the chairperson of the EC earlier on in the year, when the petition first came into the news, actually responded to this petition. Indeed, it was quite a lengthy response, perhaps that opened the Pandora's box with the counter allegations that came in subsequently. The question is, of what use is the demand or request for a copy of this petition, given that the EC chairperson has already responded to that petition, if not for purposes of appearing before the committee empaneled by the Chief Justice to look into these investigations? This morning, the panel will be looking at events that have come up so far regarding the allegations and counter-allegations, and perhaps an investigation into these allegations by a committee set up by the Chief Justice. Also up for discussion this morning, we'll be looking at the central medical stores and where we are at, excuse me, in terms of bringing finality to the issues around the fire outbreak that occurred there sometime in 2015. You will recall that on the 13th of January 2015, news broke of a fire outbreak at the central medical stores in Tema, resulting in the destruction of large stocks of medical supplies and equipment and records. The fire, which lasted a good 32 hours, destroyed 237 million Ghana cedis worth of items. Now, investigations were subsequently conducted by the National Security to, among others, identify the cause of the fire, establish whether or not there was foul play. If there was foul play, determine the person or persons involved, and also to establish the motives of the persons involved, as well as establish lapses, if any, in administrative procedures and fire safety measures that may have contributed to the outbreak. Now, a report of the investigative work was released in January 2016, almost a year after the fire outbreak. And subsequently, government gave some directives. Also, 12 officials of the Ghana Health Service were accused of playing various roles in the arson and were subsequently interdicted. However, Almost 3 years after the fire, there have been no prosecutions whatsoever. We don't know exactly what is happening. People are asking questions. There are implications for withdrawal of donor aid if this matter is not brought to a closure. We'll be looking at that on the show this morning. Also up for discussion is the imminent NPP Extraordinary Delegates Conference, which is scheduled for Sunday, which is tomorrow. And we are told that this conference is to look at some proposals for amendments to the party's constitution. We do hear that the external branches of the party are agitated as they find some of the proposed amendments to be rather exclusionary and perhaps even discriminatory. They are of the view that the proposed amendments, if approved, would effectively prevent them from contesting for some positions within the party. Proponents of these amendments are also of the view that the amendments are aimed at aligning the party's constitution with the national constitution. The panel this morning will be looking into these issues or matters arising into some detail. Also up for discussion is a look into the police service and the fact that there seems to be a trend where policemen and women perhaps are also being engaged in criminal activities. This week we heard of one Corporal Amegashi in the Tema area who was arrested as part of a robbery gang, a gang of robbers who had attacked a supermarket in Nungwa. We'll be looking at this rather disturbing trend. What can be done to curb this rather unfortunate situation? Also up for discussion is the imminent layoff of workers of Goldfields, some 1,500 workers to be laid off. What are the implications of this? All of this up for discussion this morning. At this point, we'll take a break. When I come back, the panel will join me and the conversations will start. You're watching New Day, Saturday edition. We'll be right back. Welcome back. This is New Day, Saturday edition, live on TV3, also live on 3FM 92.7 and streaming online around the world on 3news.com, as well as on our Facebook page, TV3 Ghana. I'll quickly introduce the panelists for today's conversations. From my extreme left, we have Mr. Al-Hassan Suhiyini. He is the Honourable Member of Parliament for Tamale North constituency. I think I got that right according to the CJ's directive. Next is Mr. Bobby Banson. He is a private legal practitioner. And last but not least, we have Professor Clement Jidonu. He is the president of the Accra Institute of Technology, AIT. Good morning, gentlemen, and welcome to the show. It's great to have you. We will proceed quickly to look at the EC's, I don't want to call it impeachment process because really, you know, there's nothing official, as it were, coming out from the CJ's office in this regard. And like I said earlier, it's supposed to be held in Cameroon, so we don't expect any formal communications of anything of that nature. But we have seen some ins and outs on the premises of the office of the CJ, and we can put 2 and 2 together and definitely won't come up with 6. So we know exactly what is happening. So we'll be looking at that. And this week, there have been some reaction to this development. We've had members of the opposition, you know, declare certain positions, and many other things have come up. We'll be looking at that. Quickly, I'll start with Bobby Banson. Tell us exactly what this process is. Obviously, this is coming against the backdrop of the petitions that were forwarded earlier on in the year to the president, and now the CJ has taken over. So just take us on that tangent, and then we go on to look at the issues that have come up in the course of the week.
I believe the constitutional provisions are very clear on this, that because the Chief Justice, the Electoral Commission's tenure is enshrined, is a constitutional creation. And so he or she cannot just be appointed and removed at the whims and caprices of a sitting president. Right. And so the Constitution has provided for steps to be taken if there is any need to remove an appointed Electoral Commission. And it's very similar to what needs to be done when it comes to a Chief Justice. And I think the petition is submitted to the presidency. the presidency would make a determination of whether or not there's a prima facie case.
Is that the president or the CJ that determines
the
prima
CJ that
facie
determines,
case?
yes, that there's
so
a
the
prima
president
facie
just
case, refers it to the Chief Justice. But I believe that before the president would submit it to the Chief Justice, they will look at it and, you know, because we've had situations in this country where petitions have been made against persons who are appointed by constitutional provisions, and they've not been forwarded to the Chief Justice. So I believe that the presidency will not just accept the petition, but they will look at it and see if it holds water at all.
But is that a duty? Is that a duty conferred on?
No, but it's a human endeavor.
Right.
And
so,
so I believe that
if
it has to be done.
doesn't necessarily do that, but just conveys it, he wouldn't be held
No,
to
he
have
wouldn't have breached.
constitutionally.
Yes, he wouldn't have breached any constitutional provision. And then the Chief Justice, looking at it, will determine whether there's a prima facie case, and then start the whole investigative process. My only problem with that constitutional provision is that, you see, once there's a determination of a prima facie case, our basic law of evidence states that the burden of proof shifts to the other person. It means that before the investigative machinery is set up, you are guilty, for lack of a better word, or in a layman's term, you are guilty until you prove otherwise.
Well, it's a rebuttable presumption.
Yes, but you see, they are saying a prima facie case must be established. It means that on the face of the evidence that they have received,
a case has been made.
A case has been made against you. So you need to come and rebut that case that has been made against you. So they will put it to you that we have evidence that you've done this. What do you say to that? If you are not able to explain away that evidence, it means what they have received still holds. And so you are starting on the wrong footing, technically.
So you're saying it's a legal doctrine, definitely.
Yes,
but you're saying invariably it sort of goes against the basic principles underlying our criminal jurisprudence, which is the presumption of innocence until proven guilty. Okay.
Even though this is not a criminal trial, but we know whatever it is, there would be some need for a balancing of the evidence to determine whether or not, you know, or either on the face of, this is a very important thing. So I don't think that the decision that will come out would be based on, you know, balance of probabilities. I think that there will be a certain degree of, you know, beyond all reasonable doubt, as it were. And so it's the fact that the Chief Justice has decided to set up a committee. For me, it means that they have established that there's a prima facie case, and the Electoral Commissioner and all the members of the team who have been, you know, charged or petitioned against would have to bring evidence to contradict or explain away the evidence that has been said. I believe it will be a very long and tedious process, as particularly it being the first in our under this 1992 constitution. Everybody will be watching because it will be a precedent. If it's not done well, it's a bad precedent. If it's done very well, it's a very good precedent. And so we wait to see, you know, what will come out of it.
Right. So you're concerned about the establishment of a prima facie case and requiring the party concerned to come and prove their case. That concern is taking, but that at the moment is our law.
Yeah, that is the law, yes. But thinking about it, I juxtaposing it with the provisions of the Evidence Act, which I believe will guide the entire process, because they can't do any judiciary, you know, procedure. It's a Chief Justice, so definitely the rules of court. They will set out their own rules and everything, but it will not be a departure from the established rules of court. And so once the Evidence Act states that if you bring a case, the burden lies on you. Somebody petitions, it's forwarded to the Chief Justice. The Constitution says before the Chief Justice will set up the investigative machinery, she, or as it were, she must establish a prima facie case. That is very steep.
Right.
It means that she has determined that the evidence that is available to her suggests that you are liable for what is being petitioned against you. And you now have the burden to come and prove otherwise. And that is my problem with the constitutional drafting. But as it were, we are bound by it. We can't do anything. So we just have to wait and see how it turns out.
Very well. Great. I'll move to Mr. Suhuyini here. This clearly, as explained by Bobby here, it's definitely something that's been done in accordance with constitutional provisions, Article 146 to be precise. But the NDC seems to have an issue with the process, maybe not the process, but the fact that the EC chairperson is currently undergoing this, you know, whole process, as it were. What is it exactly about this that you have issue with? Because as far as I'm concerned, this is due process that is being done. So why the agitation?
Well, if you forgive me to start from a different note before I come to answer your question. I have two friends who are mourning today. Our colleague, Kaba, will be laid to rest today. The wife used to be my colleague at Radio Gold, Valentino Forea-Frie. And so I will wish to send my heartfelt condolences to her and the family. May God give them the strength to go through this, and may the soul of our colleague and friend Kaba rest in perfect peace. Again, another colleague in broadcasting, Kobe Fiagbe, is laying the brother Frederick Kofi Owusu to rest later today as well, and he is the editor of the Ghanaian Lens newspaper, and I want to send my heartfelt condolences to him as well, and the entire family, and also to families of you know, students who have lost their lives in you know, our various secondary schools. I agree with the minority leader yesterday when he raised it on the floor of Parliament and suggested that we should declare a national health emergency as far as the issues happening in our secondary schools is concerned. My condolences to parents, and I also will want to just console and assure parents who may be anxious about the developments that together as an opposition with government, we will be ensuring that you know, safety measures are put in place to secure our children, and so that they can return and celebrate Xmas with us in peace. Now to your question, I do not know of an NDC position on this matter, because I have not heard or read any statement from the NDC. What I have read and heard,
maybe leading members of the party have expressed their views.
Are views expressed by people from all walks of life. Some of them are NDC members, some are broadcast journalists, and some are members of civil society. And those views aggregated, if tilted in one direction, should not be positioned as an NDC position.
No. I'm looking at it. I mean, you are representing the NDC on this panel, so definitely I'm coming to you in this regard on that basis.
True.
We've heard, I mean, I could name a number of them who have
I don't
categorically come out. So it's against that backdrop that I put that question.
I don't challenge that at all. What I'm saying is that at least I've heard our General Secretary speak on this. I've spoken on this as an NDC member. I've heard Malik Kwekubako speak on this as a senior broadcast journalist. I've heard Kwame Sefakai speak on this.
But they haven't, the last two you mentioned, they haven't said anything that suggests that they have agitations about it, and made, you know, some have gone ahead to make threats, for instance, that if this is carried through, this is going to happen, that kind of thing. So I'm not looking at those in sync with the process, but those departing or looking at it from a certain, like a rather different perspective. That's the perspective I'm coming to you with.
Well, there's no point. There's no need to belabor the point. The point I'm making is that the NDC doesn't have an official position on it. Just like all Ghanaians are expressing their views, members of the NDC are expressing their views also. And my view on this, and that is not an NDC view, it is just my personal view as Al Hassan Suhini, a member of Parliament, who happens to represent the NDC. My position is that I think that as a government, the NPP should have handled this more tactfully and more carefully. And I say that because when you look at the issues that are being raised related to the matter, you have the substance of the issue and you have the circumstances of the issue, the circumstances surrounding the issue. So you have the substance and you have the circumstances surrounding the issue. Now, the substance of the issue can make the circumstances irrelevant. and the circumstances surrounding the issue can also make the substance contrived or seem so. And that is why, if you listen to many people who have discussed this issue, they either choose to look at the substance of the issues that are being raised, or they look at the circumstances surrounding the issue. And I'm saying that both are important if you want to do a very logical and fair analysis. Because, like I have said, the substance can either make the circumstances surrounding it irrelevant, or the circumstances surrounding it can make the substance contrived or seem so. Now, what are the circumstances? And that is where I will want to start from. And that's why I started by saying that an NPP government, in my view, should have handled this matter more carefully and more tactfully. You recall that when the Electoral Commissioner was appointed, there were various people in the NPP, and I won't call it an NPP position, but there were various people in the NPP who expressed misgivings about the appointment of Madam Charlotte Osei. Some went to the extent of threatening her removal if they want power, and said very unprintable things about how she got to be appointed as the Electoral Commission chair. So fast forward to post-elections, the NPP is in power, and then we have a petition that at that point may relate to the substance. First of all, according to the letter transmitting the petition to the Chief Justice, undated, a petition that was undated and a petition that was unsigned, dropped at the presidency at a time the president was not in
The petition
town.
was signed by the lawyers for the...
I'm building the case.
The petitioners. I mean, but we need to get it
Yes, but
straight
according
as
to
well.
the letter that was transmitted, or that transmitted the petition to the Chief Justice, the letter indeed says that the president returned home to find an undated petition and an unsigned petition, which was later followed by a letter written by a lawyer on behalf of the petitioners. So that's why I'm saying it's important we don't miss the circumstances and the steps. And I'm saying that the circumstances can make the case, the substance seem contrived. So there was an undated and an unsigned petition that was dropped at the presidency. Now, it was later followed by a letter by a lawyer purporting to be representing those who dropped that letter with their signatures. Now, we're told 60 people were involved. It later turned out to be 17. Now we are finding out that there are only 2 drivers. And the 2 drivers do not have any letter of authority to represent the other 15. And the Electoral Commissioner, at least per her letter to the presidency, as we speak, does not have the original petition. Now, again, you look at the constitutional provision, which my brother here referred to, and you also referred to it, 1463. And some say that the president has to automatically transmit any petition that he gets. Now, my question is, what is a petition? So if I drop any letter that is undated and unsigned at the presidency, and the presidency looks at the content, and it says it wants the Chief Justice removed, per Article 1464, which deals with the removal of the Chief Justice, does it mean the president automatically will have to consult with the Council of State and form a committee to begin a process of removal of the Chief Justice? And that is why, in my view, I do not think that the presidency automatically has to transmit the petition. And that is not to say the presidency is wrong when it does so. But that is just to make the point that I think that the presidency can man up and say, look, we got the letter, it was undated, it was unsigned, but the issues raised seemed grievous, and we thought it needed to be looked into. So we tried to find out who sent that letter. And then the lawyer came with supporting documents, which then made it a petition. Because in my view, if you have a letter that is unsigned and undated, it can't qualify to be a petition.
So why is that, really? On the face of it, it says a petition.
There must be a petition.
So, yes, there must be a petitioner. But is that for the president to determine? Does the president have that duty provided or imposed by the Constitution, per the wording of 146, to look at the document and determine whether it's a petition or not? Is there that duty put on the president, so that if the president doesn't do that, you say the president would have acted unconstitutionally, for instance?
No, it's saying, sorry. So you
no,
so
he needs to, yes, and then I'll
saying that the president has acted unconstitutionally is a strong
contrary
word.
to
yes,
the provisions.
Suhini's point was that if the letter that was dropped at the presidency was not signed, did not have, it was a faceless or nameless letter, then the presidency must not have acted on it. For me, that is the purposive interpretation of 146. The reason being that if you are forwarding something to the Chief Justice, who would the Chief Justice call and ask to come and present the case? If the petition itself is not signed and has no person's name on it.
So you're saying the fact that it was signed by the petitioner's lawyers still makes it
No, the petitioner's lawyers came in later. Is it I didn't want to go into the issues when you said I should only take us through
exactly.
the process.
Definitely you get to go into that.
But just to assist in the discussion we are having now, the original petition, a purported petition, was dropped at the presidency. The president returns, finds a piece of paper with no name on it, with no signature. Then the presidency, in inquiring who brought it, receives a letter from a lawyer. Now, did the presidency go to the lawyer to ask him, do you know anything about this? Or did they publish in the newspapers that who dropped this? What was the steps in there? Because if they are saying the document was unsigned, did not have a name, how did they inquire about it? Did they publish it? Did they call somebody to ask, are you the person who dropped it? How? If it is that they initially identified an error on the face of the document that was dropped, and in an attempt to cure that, they got a lawyer to write, I'm not saying it is true, I'm only trying to assist in the discussion, then it sort of supports the theory that Suhini is making out, that the circumstances would make the substance contrived. So for me, a purposive interpretation of 146 is that a petition should be properly so-called. A petition properly so-called should be signed, named with the address of the petitioner to assist in the investigative process. You can't just drop any document at the presidency, unnamed, unsigned, make serious allegations as at this, and say, I want to remain unknown.
But isn't that why there's a duty on the president to forward it to the Chief Justice, who then goes into it and determines whether or not indeed there's any validity to this? No,
the Chief Justice would address the substance. I'm talking about the form.
Yeah, but the form, the question is, yes, clearly from reading 1463, it's clear. It says if the president receives a petition for the removal of a justice of a superior court other than the Chief Justice, or for the removal of the chairman of a regional tribunal, he shall refer the petition to the Chief Justice.
Yes, the president
At what point does the president come into or go into the realms of interpretation to interpret what a petition is?
Fortunately, our president is a lawyer.
Assuming he's not. This constitution was not made for a president who is always going to be a lawyer.
The president receives
a petition.
So there must be somebody who would give and somebody who would receive. For me, that is it.
That's fine. Let's go back to, yes.
You see, we were all taught letter writing in school. There are official letters, there are business letters, and there are informal letters. Now, what makes a letter official? And what makes it? So in that light, you can ask the question, what makes a petition? So if you drop something at the presidency with a title petition, without a date, without a signature, without an address, does the title make it qualify as a petition?
On the face of it, doesn't it? And at this point, 1463, I don't think is looking at.
I don't know if that is an official. If that is an official. That's what I'm saying. You see, the petition has the substance, but what will surround this will make you wonder if that is really something you should
So you
consider.
are raising the issues about the circumstances around it.
So I'll proceed. I'll proceed.
The format of it would not necessarily have.
So what I'm saying is that you have the presidency, like you rightly put, in my view also, inquiring about this letter that was undated and unsigned, dropped, raising serious issues. And one, under that circumstance, can say that, in my view, I don't think the constitutional provision you just read to us was meant to make the president a postboy of the Chief Justice. I don't think so. You see, there is the spirit and letter of the Constitution, and the Chief Justice has an address. So there is a reason, there must be one, why it says that when you are petitioning for the removal of the Electoral Commissioner, or in this case, judges of the Superior Court, you must route it through the presidency. I don't think it was intended so that the president will be the postboy of the Chief Justice. I think there is a reason why it should be routed through the presidency. And I believe it is because of that reason that when the presidency received the undated and unsigned letter, it did not automatically transmit it until it got a letter from a lawyer signed by some petitioners that were not named. Now, how did the presidency get this lawyer? And that is why I said in the beginning that an MPP government, because of the circumstances surrounding the appointment of Madam Charlotte Osei, should have been more careful and tactful in handling this matter.
Very well.
Now, I will be forgiven to think that somebody already knew about this petition at the presidency, and that person knew who dropped the petition.
Those are speculations.
And the person, yes, and I'll be forgiven to speculate so.
Those are speculations.
I'll be forgiven to speculate so because of the circumstances.
I move to.
Sorry about that. Well, I wish I could still.
No, we'll come back to it. I mean, it's a very nuanced area, so we'll come back to it. No problem. Yes.
Okay. So you see, I'll be forgiven to think that somebody knew about this petition, and when the issue of it being undated and unsigned came up, the person prompted whoever dropped it to do that, to correct that
conspiracy
mystery.
Theories.
Do you get it? And then that made the president, able to transmit it to the Chief Justice.
Which would be consistent with what you said earlier, that the president need not just convey things. You should interrogate it. So then they did the interrogation. You
recall that I said that if the president automatically transmits it, I see nothing wrong with it. But I'm saying that,
and if he interrogates you don't see anything wrong with it.
I don't see anything wrong with it. So that's why I'm saying that the presidency must man up and say that they looked at it and then they saw that there was merit in it, instead of hiding around a constitutional provision as if to say that they have nothing to do with it. But it is clear that something was considered, and it is not the only petition that has gone to the presidency. I mean, we have a taxi driver who petitioned the president to remove the Chief Justice, then Chief Justice. I mean, but that was in this year. I mean, we didn't see any action taken on it. So
even
I don't.
President Kufuor's time.
Exactly. So I don't, and even President Mill's time, there were other petitions. Let me wrap up.
I need to move on.
Let me wrap
30
up.
seconds to wrap
Let
up.
me wrap up on this thing. You see, in discussing this matter too, we should not forget about the role of the Electoral Commission and the tax ahead of it.
Exactly. We'll come to that.
Okay.
It's an area we flagged for discussion, so we'll definitely look at that. And now, Prof, tell us, sitting behind, I mean, from a distance, watching what's happening, the issues about the petition, Mr. Suhuyini has raised issues about the circumstances relative to the substance of it and all. What do you make of this?
Well, first, good morning to my colleagues, and a good morning to your viewers and listeners all over the world. And happy Christmas in advance.
Oh, yeah.
Well, yes, the lawyers have been talking, but it makes us more confused. So let's bring it down. Let's unbundle it to the ordinary people.
Let's unpack it, yes.
Let's unpack it. You see, anything to do with the Electoral Commission is political in this country. Look at how the pre-election time, when this Charlotte Osei was appointed, the hula balloons, issues here and there. So we don't expect that things will die down after elections. So, whole and behold, we are here preparing for the next election in 3 years' time. Already the Electoral Commission is still occupying the space. Now, these are serious matters. you want to remove, or a petition will be sent to the president. I mean, the circumstances and those information are very important. It's not true that the way things happen at the presidency, the president came back and saw the petition and said, hey, it's not signed. What? No. The president have staffers, people who look at things. Okay? The president don't have to come back and check and say something's wrong and then say, look, something must be done. Okay? I'm sure when this petition was submitted, a process was gone through, whatever, here and there. But at the end of the day, we are where we are now. The petition is in front of the what? The Chief Justice. A committee has been set up. Preliminary observations have been made. And I'm told the chairperson and the 2 deputies have been given what? 3 weeks to respond. I'm sure they will respond. You recall that Charlotte Osei actually responded
to the petition, exactly,
to the petition
when
it first came. I mean, it shows that she was very prepared to argue point by point the cases against her. So this is no new territory to her. So I'm pretty sure, I'm looking forward to their response, because the case made against them, okay, the circumstances or whatever, are very clear. The Chief Justice, as per the Constitution, have done what she's supposed to do. A committee has been set up. The committee has made a preliminary statement, and these people will be allowed to respond. For me, at the end of the day, what is going to happen is going to be messy as we go. No question about that. It's not going to be law. Law, constitution. No. It's going to be a very messy business. Already you see the preliminary statement by some of the politicians already. People are going to read into it. No, it's not about petition. It's about somebody want to remove somebody. Some people have been saying that they want to prepare for the next election, all this kind of stuff. So it's going to be messy. It's going to occupy our time. But at the end of the day, we must be careful that while we are debating all these issues and throwing things all over the place, we don't miss the substance of what it's all about. This is about the Electoral Commission. There are issues of money here and there, okay, misappropriation. Those are the claims. We must go to the bottom of this and make sure that, is it another case of corruption? Okay, is it another case of malpractice? Then when we get those issues straight, and then we deal with it. But I'm pretty sure the politicians are not going to allow us to do that. So it's going to get messy as we go. And I just hope that these 3 people, the chairperson
and her 2 deputies.
And the 2 deputies. In fact, they were accusing each other. Is that correct?
Oh, yes.
So they are counter allegations. That's a very interesting one too.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's interesting that they all find themselves in the same place now. Let's see how that's going to work out. But people out there should watch out. That let's not lose sight of the issue here. The Electoral Commission, who is supposed to be a referee of our electoral process, which is very important now for our so-called democratic dispensation, is being accused of money going here and there. Some people pocketing money here and there. Is it true? Let's go to the substance. But let's be careful that people don't politicize this. At the end of the day, we don't get anywhere. Yes.
Now, Bobby, the circumstances, again, I mean, issues have been raised. Prof is of the view that, well, that really, for him, he doesn't think that is of any, relevance or significant relevance. Let's look at the substance. Indeed, we hear, or we've seen the 3 throw allegations after allegations against each other, giving some credence to the petition that was sent, in whatever form it was sent. The subsequent behavior of the 3 have given some validity or authenticity, if you like, to the petition, whether it went as a mere sheet of paper or whatever. What happened subsequently has given some weight to it. Now, how do we, try to emphasize the importance of us resolving those issues that have come up? Because indeed, these are very serious issues. Malfeasance, alleged breaches of procurement laws and all of that. How do we deal with it to ensure that it becomes maybe depoliticized? It will be difficult, but we need to get to that point where we take out the politics of it and look at the substance.
It will not be
that easy.
It's impossible. You see, and I'm being very honest. There's no way this entire process would be depoliticized. Personally, prior to the election, the Electoral Commissioner made certain comments that I thought were not supposed to have been made by somebody who is supposed to be a referee. I wasn't happy with some of the comments she made. But she's the Electoral Commissioner. She's a human being. she is bound to make mistakes and stuff like that.
What kind of comments, for instance? Just
for
to give
instance,
some
I think she was
elaboration to it.
interviewed by a foreign media, and I would, as we go along, I'll recall the substance of what she said, but I'll recall. I'm very sure I'll recall before we leave here. Now, for me, the timing of the petition and the timing of the first petition and the timing of the second petition and the persons behind these petitions are the reason why we cannot depoliticize it. You see, in the very last one we had, the taxi driver, he's not a known sympathizer of any political party. Mrs. Loretta Lamte's issue. That's Shraj. It was, the petition was not made by any person who is known to be a sympathizer of any political party. Now, I know, because of his previous social media comments and everything, that the lawyer who signed the first petition against the Electoral Commission is a known sympathizer of the MPP. Everybody who knows him knows.
But should that matter? He's representing
you see, that is why I'm saying that it cannot be depoliticized. The comments that he made, the comments made by one of their close friends subsequently after, who is also a lawyer, suggest that it is a personal thing. And the records are done on social media. So the lawyer who's acting for the petitioners filed a petition, makes a social media comment. Somebody who is supposed to be his best friend responds on his Facebook wall, gives a history of how the three of them, his friend, the lawyer petitioner, and the Electoral Commissioner, how they started up from the faculty of law to the law school, how it was the Electoral Commissioner's father who literally took care of them, how they fell out even before the woman got the post. For him to suggest that, I told you, don't take this step. It's colored the whole thing. It's
more of a personal thing than a political thing. Given the example,
that is why I'm saying that. That is why I'm saying that the lawyer who signed the petition is a known sympathizer of the ruling government,
and they fell out because of politics.
Well, is that on?
Yes, it was on there. You can read. You can go to their Facebook walls and read it. Now, when the first petition was filed, prior to that, remember, the Electoral Commissioner had made a complaint to Iyoko that when she came into office, she came to meet her two deputies in office. When she came to office, she was presented with some financial statements which she found problematic. So she didn't come to the public. In fact, if not for this petition, I wouldn't have known that she had gone to Iyoko. She filed a complaint at Iyoko that investigates the whole finance committee. And that is where the two deputy commissioners were roped in. After the first petition. So when the first petition came up, the discussion was, I don't know whether she's the first or second, but Georgina Amankwa. Yes, second.
I mean, two deputies, one is in charge of corporate services and the other is...
but I'm saying that the social media, the discussions that came up was that the second deputy commissioner is the mastermind behind the petition because she is very close friends with the lawyer of the petitioner. Okay? And that is where the whole thing blew out. Now, a second petition came. They said, okay, if Iyoko has finished their investigations and even asked the first deputy commissioner to proceed on leave.
But Iyoko is actually not done with that.
Yes.
She's been...
No, but now all these issues have come before the Chief Justice. And I do not think that Iyoko will continue to investigate when the same subject matter is before the Chief Justice. So
put it into consent.
Yes, and then do everything. Now, the first deputy commissioner said, I will proceed on leave for you to continue your investigations. And then he started throwing salvos against the second deputy commissioner and then the commissioner. And that was the basis for the second petition. That, hold on, you can't investigate only the head. Look at what is happening between the two deputies. Let's investigate both of them. Who signed the second petition? I'm not sure who signed the second petition. But for me...
I mean, there's a name there, but...
But for me, the reason why we cannot depoliticize it is the person who signed the first petition, the comments that had been made prior to her appointment, and the timing. Because you see, these allegations did not happen in 2017. These allegations
definitely not
were happened 2015, 2016. At that time, there was a sitting president. At that time, these petitioners were still in the employment of the Electoral Commission. If they thought it was something that was that urgent, why did they not file the petition when the NDC was in power? It only allows ordinary men like me, who are not politicians, to suggest or to think that maybe they were waiting for their like-minded persons to be in government. And that is where I think this particular matter can be differentiated from all other petitions that have come up to the presidency since 1992.
But perhaps also to add to what you're saying, they're looking at different reactions and how you can conclude that, yes, this is politicized or not. Looking at, and again, I'll go to Honorable Saini. I mean, like, you know, you cannot, it's a fact that there's been a certain, if you like, sympathy coming from the NDC in terms of Madam Charlotte Osei. Clearly, the NDC, well, maybe not as officially, but there seems to be that sense of defending her. That also goes into the mix of things that creates a certain, you know, idea that this is really political.
If I were in their shoes, I would have defended her. And I'm being frank and honest. The reason being that she was appointed by the NDC.
Right.
President Mahama went through the constitutional requirement for the appointment of the EC. And a lot of things came up. There were allegations that she had attempted to run for primaries, which ended up not being true, as it were. Now, if they had appointed her, and the known MPP sympathizers made very, I mean, I was disgusted by some of the comments that were made. And the candidate of the MPP at that time, who is now the president, never. I remember, was it the chairman or the general secretary of the MPP who was asked whether they would comment on what the MPP man had said. They said, oh, that gentleman, a lot of the things he says end up being true. I remember very because I was following that story. And so who knows, it may be true how the electoral commissioner got the post. And that is something we cannot even repeat on this platform. And so it gives credence to the political motivation to it. Even though, like I stated, I was not happy with the way the electoral commissioner handled some of the things prior to the election. But you see,
okay, you're up.
Sorry. At the end of the day, Abna, she has delivered an election without war. MPP did not go to court. NDC did not go to court. Whatever it is, it was free, it was fair. The margin was 1 million or so, as they say.
That.
Why don't you?
Why don't you? Yes.
As it were. Why don't you, as the Council of State? That is how I thought they would go about this. Call these 3 persons at the Electoral Commission. Do everything in camera. Nobody would have even heard about it.
But there are constitutional provisions for that.
No, you see, like we
need to take a break.
Said,
we need to take a
break. When the lawyers start talking, everybody gets confused.
We need to take a break. When we come, you have another bite, and then we wrap up on this. So let's take a break. You're watching NewDay Saturday edition. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching and listening to NewDay Saturday edition live on TV3, also live on 3FM 92.7 and live around the world online at 3news.com. Also on our Facebook page, TV3 Ghana. We'll be moving on to wrap up on the conversation about the EC's the probe into allegations of malfeasance and other wrongdoings. But before then, I'll take some messages that have come through. This is Stallone in Suhum. He says the investigation into the allegation leveled against the electoral commissioners should be carried out without biases against any of the commissioners. Anyone found culpable should be dealt with in accordance with the Constitution. This one says, Abna, in accounting, the position of IFRS is substance over form. The content of the petition is more important than the process. This is Ziemo. You didn't say where you're sending us a text from, but thanks. Musa Abatwa in Kumasi says, Abna, Madam Charlotte Osei's case started with faceless petitioners. Later, 17 signatures appeared in 2 petitioners, and 2 petitions are now shown. I'm sure you mean petitioners. The sequence of events tells you something is hidden under the carpet. Any attempt by desperate politicians trying to jeopardize EC as an independent institution would be resisted by the masses. The petition lacks true sense of judgment. It's a political gimmick, and if care is not taken, it will endanger the peaceful political environment we're seeing today. God save Ghana. Good morning, Abna, and your panelists. I'm sure the actions of the Flagstaff House has fueled the public perception of the government having a hand in this EC's issue. That's Aram in Adenton News. I think you will pull the brakes on the messages here and return to the panel. I'll go quickly to Mr. Suhuyini and then to Prof for their concluding remarks on this. Yes, I would want us in your submissions. I know you would want to touch on some things that Bobby said, but also let's have moving forward look at this. How can we get the EC running and not be affected by, this whole process? Because indeed the EC in 2016 launched a 5-year development plan, which it should be pursuing actively. There's also local elections to be held sometime next year.
We have a referendum.
We may have it. So a number of things lined up. And contrary to the public, the popular view, if you like, that ECs or the EC is there for just election years, I think that's not the case at all. They need to be working, around the clock. So looking forward, how to deal with that, Mr. Suhuyini?
Yeah, thank you very much. I agree with Bobby that it is going to be very difficult to depoliticize the whole process. And I'm sorry, but we are all concerned about the issues of misappropriation and misapplication of funds. But we want our concern not to be abused by any person seeking a political agenda. We are concerned. We want to know if indeed state funds were misapplied or misappropriated in the operations of the Electoral Commission. But we should also guard against anybody or any institution or any organization using that justifiable concern of ours to pursue a political agenda. And clearly you look at the whole process and you see politics all around it. And you see the point you make about the NDC or leading members of the NDC speaking favorably about Madam Charlotte Osei creating the impression of politics does not, make the pronouncements of the NPP against Charlotte Osei any less political.
Definitely not. I didn't say that. Definitely not, yes.
So it is not just the NDC that is speaking in favor of Charlotte Osei that makes the whole process political. It's also NPP members speaking
it's a
against.
Of things.
It's also about NPP people or people related to the NPP who are also playing other roles that seem to be against Charlotte Osei, and that has to be put in proper context. And now we were first told that the petition contained 27 allegations. The 27 allegations were those forwarded to the Chief Justice. The Chief Justice has determined prima facie case on, I think, 6. And Madam Charlotte Osei and the others are supposed to respond.
For me, sorry to cut you, but because we don't have these things coming formally from the office, I wouldn't want us to,
seen letters. I have seen letters confirming same.
But
I've seen
we don't have it to verify. So it's a bit, and because this thing is to be held in camera,
right.
Certain details for me,
That is important because, you see, you have asked us to look forward. And if we don't understand the process now, the forward, what is expected ahead of us can be jeopardized. And that is why we all need to understand what is going on so that our biases and our prejudices will be minimal when it comes to cooperating with the Electoral Commission to perform the task that is ahead of it. If we don't do that, I don't see how we can move forward. And that is why I think that all well-meaning Ghanaians, especially stakeholders in our democratic process, even if they are not Ghanaians, should be concerned about what is happening at the Electoral Commission and join hands to insist that proper things are done so that we can have some peace around around the operations of the Electoral Commission. I talked about the allegations based on what I know reducing to 6, and then I also am concerned that the Electoral Commissioner, as we speak, at least per her letter to the presidency, does not have the original petition because
so which one did she respond to?
It is important. She responded to...
Because she responded copiously.
She responded to a letter that the Chief Justice, according to what we have read, that the Chief Justice wrote to her stating some of the allegations, but not the copy of the petition. And we have precedents, because in the Loretta Van Depoy case, that wasn't the procedure used. You can blame it on the style of the new Chief Justice. But I'm saying that it is important that the style does not, you know, confound all of us and make the issues more complicated. Now, the petition being given to her is important because, especially because of the changing numbers of petitioners. The changing numbers of petitioners. So, were they 60? Were they 17?
But what does that do? Does it take away
I'll tell you what it does.
There are allegations?
I'll tell you what it does.
Quickly,
I have seen situations where people have come out after a petition is filed to say, even with their signatures on it, to say, I was tricked to sign it. I didn't know that was contained in the petition. It's important. I've seen that. I've seen that. And in that case, that petitioner can be a witness for the one who is accused.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day,
so it is important. It is important that if I'm accused and you tell me that 7 people petitioned, I should see the 7. If it reduces to 5, I will want to know why the 2 are no longer part of it. If it reduces to, in this case, 60 to 19 and then to 17 to 2, I want to know why others are no longer part of it. It strengthens my case. And that is why it is important that I think the copy should be given. Then finally, on the way forward.
30 seconds on that.
You see, this year, I mean next year, this year is over. But next year, if we are to believe the president, even though I have seen, you know, other things that have happened from the election and this year, promises that haven't been fulfilled. So I doubt some of these things. But if we are to believe the president, next year we are supposed to elect district chief executives. That is an exercise the Electoral Commission has to perform. We are supposed to do referendums across the country to see if we need to divide our country into more regions. That is a function the Electoral Commission has to perform. We are supposed to do, I think, limited voter registration exercise. Will happen from now to 2020. Now, in 2019, there's supposed to be district assembly elections. And that is going to be around September thereabout, if you are looking at when we last had the district assembly elections. And that is going to be less than maybe a year to the 2020 general elections. And we are all embroiled with what
so there are big things ahead of us, yet we are bogged down with
this. And that is why I think, you know, people with interest in our democracy, Ghanaian or non-Ghanaian, should get involved in this process.
Some would also say that the earlier we purge the system, the better. So let's go through
I'm not saying we should stop the process. I'm saying we should get involved and ensure that, you know, because we have started the process, even though I would have gone for the suggestion by Bobby, that this could have been handled administratively, and even the issues of misappropriation and malfeasance could have still been dealt with if we had, for example, the Council of State and others getting involved and narrowing down to the 8 or 6, you know, allegations that the Chief Justice too has determined prima facie case on. The responsible bodies of state could have taken it up, like we are told Charlotte Osei did in the first place by sending some reports to the EOCO. And if monies had to be retrieved, if people had to be sanctioned, it could have still been done without us creating this whole hula baloo about the future of the Electoral Commission. Because
well, it depends on the objective of the petitioners. If they are looking at a removal, then this is the way to go. But if it's to resolve issues about how monies have been spent, then perhaps some other processes would have to
I agree with you, but then again, that is where the NPP should have handled it better. Because we have precedents that have shown that you should always put the safety and the future of our democracy first.
So you think by this act they are risking?
I think the future.
Very well. Let me quickly turn to Prof here. Let me turn to Prof. Prof, forward-looking issues here. Some have said that given the level of acrimony that has been exhibited by the 3, these top, you know, at the top leadership of the EC, no matter what happens, if the allegations are proven or not, they obviously cannot work together, and so we should be looking at, you know, some other options.
Yes, you actually took the words out of my mouth. That whatever this process concludes, we have a problem. I can see how these three people can work together. I mean, it's quite unusual for the chief, that is the chairperson, accusing the deputies accusing the what?
The chairperson.
The chair. I don't know how.
They are accusing each
other. So yes.
Yes. So are they?
Where
are they now? Where are they now? They still at the Electoral Commission working together, or are they?
Well, I know Georgina Amankwa has been suspended given the EOCO investigation.
And the other one?
I think
he went on leave.
Okay, so it's only the chairperson who is at post. Is that correct?
Yes.
Very good. Now, supposing they return, I don't know how the three of them can work together. That's for, you don't need a lawyer or anybody to tell you that. Okay? So the interpersonal relationship, the working conditions and so on and so is actually out of the window already. Those three people cannot work together at the Electoral Commission. In fact, it will be recommended that the three of them don't work together. That's as simple as that. Now, as to the process itself, it will land somehow in a very messy way, but it will land, like a lot of things in Ghana, it will land. The case will be looked at, the three people will respond, okay, the politician will take their position, the lawyer will take their position, we will land. There's no problem with that. But certainly...
The aftermath of the landing.
Yes, well, it will be a soft landing, hard landing, I don't know about that one, but we will land somehow. But yes, but the issue is, at the end of this process, sometimes it's not actually what happened, it's what you become after what happened.
Right.
What Ghana will become after all this process. Our electoral system, okay, the elections which are all earmarked, all those sort of things, certainly is going to suffer. So my plea to all people, the lawyers, the judges, the politicians, is that we need to be watchful that this is electoral commission we are talking about. And although we are talking about three people, we are talking about three principal people. And accusations or allegations brought against them are very serious ones. The way we handle it and the way we land is going to affect the way we are going to do the things, I mean, very soon. Now, supposing the Electoral Commissioner chairperson is asked to go, do we go to get a new one? And I'm sure that's also going to be very messy. Very messy. And if they don't do it very quickly before the next election, people will read all kinds of things into it. So I don't think this is going to be a soft landing. It's going to be a hard landing, and it's going to be very messy.
We should prepare for it.
We should prepare for it. It's as simple as that.
Very well. Thank you. I think we can move on. We've dealt, well, quite extensively with this issue, even though we could have done more, but we need to move on to the other topics. We're going straight to look at the central medical stores and the issues around that. Finality being brought to this or not. What is happening? Almost 3 years after the fire. This incident happened, the fire outbreak happened in January, I believe specifically 13 January 2015. And an investigative report was released following the commission of a committee to investigate in January 2016, a year after that. Subsequently, 12 officials of the Ghana Health Service interdicted. And we are told that the AG or government issued directives, including a directive to the police CID, working in collaboration with the BNI to prepare dockets for prosecution by the Attorney Generals. And 3 years down the lane, nothing has happened. Mr. Suhini, what has caused this delay?
Well,
and let me add that indeed that the investigative reports pointed to arson. Somebody deliberately set up, the place to conceal evidence of some investigations that were being done by EOCO at the time.
I think a lot of things in this country go unpunished when they don't wear political colors. The politician is easily punished. At least he's voted out every now and then. But the people who get away with what I think sometimes is worse than the commissions of the politician are the people who say they are non-partisan and engage in all manner of things at their respective places of work. From, not because lawyers are here, lawyers to, civil servants, to doctors, and the kind of things they do sometimes even shock and frighten the politician. I mean, A classical example is the arson at the central medical stores. I mean, if you read the reports and how certain workers of that institution connived to hide evidence by setting a whole medical store on fire and costing this nation so much, apart from the medicines that we are told had just even arrived at, I can't recall the figures that were involved, but millions and millions. $237 million
dollars.
No,
yes, 8 million. It translates to
yes,
there are about 8 million or so.
I mean, that is just unthinkable. Apart from that loss, we also have a situation where we don't even have a place where we can store medicines again. And we are now using makeshift, systems to do that. So the process of investigation commences, and that again is where you will find other things that are done. If I didn't mention their names, it's because it escaped me. You see, according to the Attorney General, and I listened to her this week on radio, the investigation was done to a point. Some dockets were built, but it was not adequate enough. When they studied it, when the dockets were forwarded to the Attorney General office, when they studied it, they thought that there were still some missing gaps in the investigation process. And so they referred it back, with some questions, hoping that the answers will come from the investigative body or bodies. And here you're talking about the police, the CID, and the BNI. They were involved in the investigation. Now, if the people there, who are not politicians, by the way, and they are still at post, did not do their work to enable the Attorney General at the time to secure the necessary convictions and punishments, meted out to the people who were said to have engaged in this, how do we move forward? Now, a new government is in place. The last time I heard the Minister of Health talking about a forensic audit that they were doing, I hope that the people involved in that forensic audit will be mindful of the need for us to protect our state assets and resources.
That forensic audit is yet to be done. That the Auditor General has concluded processes to, apparently they are yet to get a consultant to do that, so the tendering process and everything. So clearly, there's that.
But then again, that is a problem of how we all behave as politicians. I have been monitoring the political terrain for a while now, and especially, I followed it in 2009, I followed it in 2001, and I am observing at a closer range this time around, and I think one thing is clear to me. Sometimes when politicians are in opposition, we hardly listen to each other, especially we hardly listen to the government in power. And so all we listen...
We're working hard to come into power.
Exactly. We are working hard to come into power, and the only way to come into power is to listen more to the negatives. And so we don't even hear about the positives. So it is very easy for people to come into power and fail to realize that some good things had started or some good things had been done that need consolidation. So, for example, you have a government will come into power, and businessmen and other civil society it's not civil society, but civil servants and others who are trying to gain favor will repackage sometimes things that were already done and present it to the new government. So the new government takes some of these things as new projects, sometimes to be embarrassed by evidence that what you are doing is not really new.
So talking about lapses in transition.
Processes
then. Because if handing over notes are to be prepared,
they are prepared. Are they read? Do you get it? Because at the time the handing over notes are done, in some cases, there are no appointees in office. So when the people are finally appointed, do we send the handing over notes to the respective institutions?
But
and do they even
is it the
administrator general?
Yeah.
But usually the handing over notes are handled by the transition teams. But I'm saying after the transition teams are done, do they transmit this to the new ministers? Because what I know is usually done is that the transition teams, they form subcommittees to deal with transport and all that, and then they do a summary of what they find in the handing over notes, which sometimes, if you are minded as an appointee, you can look for to guide you. But do all our appointees do that? So in the case of the central medical stores, you will find out that the health minister seemed to be charting a new path altogether,
which you see, well,
which is not wrong. But I'm saying that what happened to the process that started? Is the new process going to be linked to the process that started? Or is it the case that the minister has determined that the old process will lead to nothing?
Well,
and that is why he's starting a new process. But remember, money was spent on the investigators and the evidence that were all collected and gathered and used to inform the decisions that were reached, you know, at the conclusion that this was arson, can still be relevant to whatever process you want to undertake now.
I mean, I will move to Bobby, but, you know, to link what you're saying to something that I have here. I'm not sure if the minister currently, the Minister of Health, is starting something afresh. Because looking at the report, the AG at the time, Mrs. Marietta Opong, did Marietta, say that there was a request or a directive for the setting up of a task force that was to conduct the forensic audit. So back in 2016, that directive had been given. Question then is, what happened between then and now that we don't seem to have any forensic audit on the table or any signs that that process had actually started?
2016, what?
2016, January, when the reports came out.
So what I'm saying is that at the time, she said that they had some dockets that they were not very satisfied with. And I'm sure that is what informed the decision to conduct the forensic audit. Now, I also, when I was listening to her, heard her say that almost every week when they went to cabinet, the president kept asking about the central medical stores because he was that worried about, you know, the delay in the process. But you will understand that 2016 was a very busy year. It was a political year. You can't run away from it. So if the attention
Am I hearing you say that?
It was
elections take precedence?
I'm not saying no. You see, sometimes that's why it's so difficult.
That's what I'm asking for you to clarify to clarify for me. Sorry.
You see, there was a process that was started. Now, if the Attorney General at the time gave this indication that a forensic task force was to be set up and wrote the necessary letters to the security agencies and other people who are supposed to do it, and did not have remember, she was, you know, there were competing needs. You had the what do you call it, the boundary disputes, the boundary disputes and others. All of this were on the table. Now, if she did not have, and you're talking about 1 year. 1 year is gone, 2017. We can say the whole of 2017, why hasn't the health minister started anything? We can say that. Why hasn't
they will also come and say they were appointing people to come and put.
So there are always reasons why these things happen, and they are not, they may not be satisfactory enough. But that is why we should all get involved. So if somebody has a role to play, Bobby, that person must be seen doing it. You know,
Bobby, thank you, Mr. Suhuyini, on this. The delays, I mean, they can't be justified because you're looking at huge sums of money, 237 million Ghana cedis distraction of items valued at that amount. And for me, the worrying part is where development partners now are, you know, demanding that finality is brought to this. Otherwise, they withdraw. And this is a country that depends heavily on donor support. So we can't, you know, take the chances here. So for me, the delay is quite worrying. And I just don't understand why. But what do you make of that?
Now, from the beginning, as soon as this happened, I think after the fire service preliminary investigations, they determined it was arson. Arson is a crime. That is why we've never said the unfortunate incident of fire outbreak at them. We've always called it arson. And arson is a crime. It means that there are people who perpetrated this crime. If it had been a murder of a member of ruling government, within 24, 48 hours, they would have arrested the person.
Elections or no elections?
Elections or no
I
elections.
don't think that mischief is fair.
No, Honorable, seriously, I'm not being mischievous here. I'm just
no, I don't think that mischievous.
I'm sure she.
I'm not being.
You see, that's what you do, and then you see a headline. Suhini says elections were superior than, and that is not a fair thing.
I mean, but that would go to the credibility of whoever puts out such a headline.
I don't think you should do that. It's not fair.
So you would see that because it is a matter that does not directly affect the pockets of the people involved, investigations are lackadaisical. I will not blame anybody, but I will not blame the politicians in this case, because they are not the ones to get down on the job to do the investigations. If the current Attorney General said they received dockets, after studying it, they realized certain vital information was absent. And it would be better for them to get a full docket and do a proper prosecution than present a half-baked investigations and get the people acquitted. Once they are acquitted, they can't be rearrested again.
So internally prosecuted, people come and say they are not doing
politically
the job
motivated and they are not doing their job. So if he says that from what he came to meet, the investigations have not been completed, we should turn our attention to the CID, the BNI, who are supposed to do these investigations. Once we have determined that it's arson, and it's almost 3 years, 2015. January. It's almost 3 years. Why have we not even found one single person directly linked to it?
But the people who were interdicted, the 12 Ghana Health Service personnel, they said, I mean, clearly that they were found to have played various roles in that arson. So clearly you have some suspects that you could have...
No, but interdiction is a civil step. In terms of their labor engagement with the Ministry of Health, they are interdicted because something that was in their possession has ended up getting bent. The standard of proof in that interdiction is definitely different if they want to take a criminal step. Now, for our development and donor partners, it's not enough to say we've interdicted them. Nobody gets anything.
So what I mean is, at least we have some names you could proceed forward.
Well, that is what I'm saying. The CID, if they were doing their investigations like they would have done if it had been something that directly affects a politician's pocket, let me put it that way, or a political party, I'm sure they would have done it. Now, my worry about this is the effect on our health delivery system. You see, students are dying and we don't have vaccines. I read yesterday that the vaccines that are supposed to come are locked up in Korea. And I asked myself, if we had this storage, we would be keeping these vaccines. Now we don't have a storage. Assuming this H1N1 or meningitis was a national outbreak, now we are dealing with 50 students here, 20 students there, and we don't have vaccines. They are locked up in Korea. That is why this issue is very, very important. And I agree with the donor partners. If you lose 8 million or so worth of products, and you can't tell us how.
That's their taxpayers' money.
Why should we bring you more to store? So you keep it and release it as and when you need it. At the end of the day, it's not only the politician who will suffer. They may not even suffer because they may not have their children in these schools. It's us, the ordinary ones, who will suffer. And that is why I am expecting social, civil societies to put a lot of pressure to bring closure to this step. I'm expecting them to put a lot of, because we are only looking at one side of it, arson, people must be punished. But we are not looking at the overall impact on our health delivery system. We don't have vaccines. Earlier in the year, they were complaining that we don't have polio vaccines. Nobody is telling us that it is not because we don't have a store to keep them. But that is the truth. If we don't have a store, that is the store that distributes vaccines and medicine to the whole world. The whole Ghana. If we don't have it, where do we keep them? So we won't even import them. And that is the root of the failings in our delivery system as we are seeing them now. We still don't have vaccines for these H1N1. As we speak, they are locked up in Korea. By the time they come, what would have happened? So I think the civil society should concentrate and tackle this issue and put a lot of pressure. If they will not charge these people and send them to court, they should finish their investigations and present them to the donor partners. and tell them that we have finished. These are the processes that we will need to find these people guilty or whatsoever, and let them start giving us
to that.
Yes, and then keep these medicines because we need them.
Right, but you see what's interesting is this, to add to that, and perhaps you could touch on it as well, that reading from the report, the forensic audit has a certain scope, which for me, I can't see how that forensic audit should even stall the process of prosecuting that, because it says, let me read, it says that recommendations include the request for a proper forensic audit to unearth the extent to which consumable and non-consumable drugs have been diverted. That is expected to cover the distribution of mosquito nets meant for the various regional medical stores and district health institutions. So clearly here you're looking at diversion of supplies, if you like. And then it goes on to say the report recommended that the audit should be conducted into a transaction between Volta Impex and the Ministry of Health, following information gathered concerning an amount of 5 million Ghana cedis paid to the company for the supply of 2 million prescription forms to the National Health Insurance Scheme in 2011. So the forensic audit has a certain scope, which would not
have a direct
exactly. So if you're saying you are waiting for a forensic audit to be able to, it's lost on me, seriously.
You know, when it happened, the media reportage, and I'm not saying that it is the truth, I'm saying it as hearsay, was that people had to bend the place down to cover diversions.
Indeed, it was in the report. It's not
that things have not been delivered or supplied, and if we say so, for instance,
when I was speaking, sorry, if you permit me, when I was speaking, I talked about how inconclusive, according to the Attorney General, the investigation was. So this is a report, all right, naming some people. In fact, I've heard one other guy, Alaji Yusuf, also, who was implicated in the report.
He said that the report
and he says that it does. You know, he petitioned the Attorney General at the time, and I think he has petitioned the Health Minister again, the new Health Minister. So I'm sure it was because of some of these things that the Attorney General office at the time requested that some further investigation be done and the office furnish with evidence that will lead to convictions. You just don't go to court because you know, a docket has been prepared and sent to you. I'm sure your intention is to secure conviction at the end of the day. So if the Attorney General office at the time that they received this report thought that what they had wasn't enough to secure them conviction, and they requested for more, and maybe along the line we're not able to get that from the investigation, you know, bodies. I think that it is not lost yet. That is why I think that the forensic audit now that the Minister of Health is saying 12 months in office, is now realizing that this has to be done 12 months in office, should also not exclude the case as it was determined by the investigation body. And if he sees what was presented to the Attorney General's office at the time to be enough to secure convictions, what stops her from going to court now? If she also agrees with the previous Attorney General that more is needed to secure conviction, then that request is reactivated.
No, she has made that request.
Yes.
The new Attorney General has made that request that she, from the docket that has been presented before her, is not enough, so they should go back and do their work. So I think the civil society should take this matter up and put lots of pressure on the investigative bodies to complete their work, and we will bring closure to this. It's been far too long, just like all the other fire incidents that have been reported across the country. We hear lots of noise, and at the end of the day, we don't see anything, and it happens again. That is that is unfortunate.
Great, thanks. I'll move to Prof here, and Prof, let me hear from you on this. This 3 years on, nothing conclusive coming out. How do we bring closure to this?
Well, Bernard, this is quite a serious matter. If this was a case of a food store where we store cassava and plantain and gari, and somebody go and burn it down, we could go back and farm again and get those things in place. This is a medical store, not only for a private hospital, for the whole nation. Whole nation. We don't have a lot of money. That's why the donors are in to assist us. And we are told that this medical store hosts all the medicines that we need at a given time. And then we are told that there are some people working there, allegedly, were siphoning off this medicine and selling them and do all kind of things. That's a serious matter. Yeah. This is a life and death matter. The medicine that we need to cure some of our ailments, some people are making business out of that. Is that true? If it is true, so why is it taking so long for us to prosecute these people? That's the first point. That's one aspect of the issue. The other aspect of the issue is the fire. Okay? The fire happened. A lot of money was lost. Evidence were burnt. Medicine were burnt. And we are given a figure. A whole, report was prepared 3 years ago. And only even on the issue of the fire, we're still hanging around. Don't know whether to prosecute or not to prosecute. But what struck me is the interaction recently between the former Minister of Health and then the sitting Minister of Health. It looks as if they didn't even agree on where we are and, where we are. Now, let me quote from what I got from the social media. He said, but 2 years after the incident occurred, no punitive measures have been taken against the people who were said to have masterminded the act. 2 years after the report. Now, the then Health Minister, Alex Segwefia, at the press conference said that the key suspect has absconded. The reason why nothing has been done in terms of prosecution. Period. The former minister said because Dogbe, is that correct?
Yes.
The laborer who was purported to have set the fire has run away. Because of that, that's why no prosecution have taken place. That's the former minister. Now, he also said the national security in his report also recommended that a forensic audit be conducted to get to the bottom of the issue. Not the bottom of the issues in terms of the fire, but on whether some stealings have taken place. And our current minister said that he was shocked at the recommendations for that forensic ministry because to him it's an attempt to deliberately frustrate any prosecution. He continued to say, when that particular recommendation is make it impossible to prosecute anybody. So I'm getting confused. The former minister said, the guy who caught the fire ran away. That's why we cannot prosecute for more 2 years. The current minister said, because you asked for, the report asked for forensic thing, it's impossible to prosecute anybody. So I'm a bit confused. But meanwhile, the donors, which I don't care very much about, because this is about us, it's not about the donors, to be frank with you. Okay? We are supposed to buy our own medicine to cure our own people. If some people come to help us, fair and
to the extent that we're not buying it ourselves, they have a say. They
have a say. Well, the only aspect of the donors that I take on board is that they are frustrated that, hey, you guys, this matter is just a fire. You have investigated it. Prosecute the people. So why is it taking so long? If you don't do it, that's what they said. We will not give you money. Should it come to that? So at least the fact that they are frustrated, we look and say we are not frustrated. We are the people who are benefiting. We are not frustrated. The donors who care about us more than we care about ourselves.
They care about their taxpayers' money.
Than we care about our health. So that is my decision. So for me, the two key people, the former minister said because the guy who started the fire ran away, that's why the prosecution, and he also said that the case has been sent to the CID for further evidence. And he also said that they have not heard from the CID yet, if I'm correct. So as citizens of Ghana, we are not clear where we are, but it's not going to happen tomorrow. This is going to run another 1 year or 2 years before we get to the bottom of it. And if you are waiting for the donors' money to buy medicine, you better forget about it. So for me, this is another case of us not managing our affairs very well. Now, is it true that these people have been suffering of our medicine? That can easily be checked. Because we know what came to stock. Okay? They were imported medicine. The donors were involved. They bought 10 cartons of this vaccine on so and so date. And now, before the fire, how many cartons were installed? How many cartons were burnt? It's easy to find out.
But the fire destroyed all of that.
Oh, no. Well, unless the fire also destroyed the stock taken. Okay? I'm sure some of the stock was on computer. The computer also got burnt. Is a file, this is a paper, you see.
So you would have the before fire figures, but you wouldn't have the after fire figures.
No. I think there's evidence there. There's evidence there. Okay, easy.
We know the amount of vaccine we release at every time. Okay, the vaccine came at the beginning of the year. Okay, 200 pieces of it. We know that our government hospital, we didn't release the 200 pieces at the goal. Given the demand, we normally release about 10. By the time the fire came, it was 10 months into when we did this. We can easily do simple calculation. Even without even get the evidence that the fire has burnt. So given stock taking, we know how much of the ammunition leave the store on a periodic basis. We know when they came in. Okay, we don't need to know all the totality of what was stolen. We just need to know that 1 or 2 of them have been stolen. Then we make a case that yes, you guys have been stealing medicine, which are made to cure ordinary Ghanaians. And there might be a lack of depth on this issue. Okay, we go to some hospital, they say they're going to give you drugs. Meanwhile, some people somewhere allegedly have been selling the drug. I'm told they sell the drug to what? Togo or to Burkina or something. So for me, these are serious matters. If it's such a serious matter that the president is asking for a report at every cabinet meeting, and we sit down here talking that, well, we don't know what is going on. For me, it's very, very disturbing. And it's also sending a signal to other such government agencies who are keeping our stock. Okay? These people got away with it for 3 years. Probably they may get away with it for forever. It sends a signal that you can do it and bend the place down and then get away with it. So I think this issue is so serious that the government cannot tell us that to take, whatever we look at it, is the current government who have a responsibility to face this. They cannot continue blaming the other guys that, well, you had evidence. No. You are in charge now. You must face this. But the question is, are they going to take another 3 years? Now, meanwhile, about building another medical store, is it so difficult? Do we have to continue living in makeshift? Is it so difficult to build another medical store? It's a process started. It is?
It is.
It's quite capital intensive. It's capital intensive.
I think there was a process started to design and construct a new medical store.
Yes.
I recall that there were discussions around that. That will even be more fire
resistant,
fireproof in a way, and other weather conditions that it could withstand.
Well, that is also in process, work in progress.
So at least that was in 2016.
Now that's another serious matter.
I don't know where this.
I'm told, I stand corrected, that the CMS is not insured.
But I think it came up
That's
as well.
serious matter.
Yeah, that also came up.
That central medical store of the nation, of close to 30 million people, the Ministry of Health getting this medicine from abroad, spending millions of dollars, and even if you have a cassava shed, people ask you to insure it. It's not insured. Do we need to wait for forensic report to prosecute the Ministry of Health officials who didn't insure this place? How many of those government stores are not insured? So these are serious matters. But we can sit on debating it for another 3 years. For me, we need to come back to this over and over again. So it's not a matter of arresting a few guys from the CMS. This is a matter who have a wider implication. And I think the government must come out and lead on this. Rather than saying that this guy didn't do this, this guy didn't do this, this guy didn't do this. We must get this finality to this issue. As to whether the donors will continue to support us, if they've changed their mind, probably they have changed their mind already. Now, how is the guarantee that if you give them a drug, we will not go and burn it that again? Those are serious issues we must consider as a nation and as people.
Well, maybe the threat of withdrawal of funds would get us acting, and then we'll see some closure or finality being brought to this issue. But at this point, we'll take a break. When we come back, we look at the NPP Extraordinary Delegates Conference that is slated for tomorrow. What are the matters coming up, even as they prepare for that conference? We'll see you shortly. Welcome back. This is New Day Saturday edition. We're live on TV3, also live on 3FM 92.7, and we're streaming live on the internet at 3news.com. Also on our Facebook page, TV3 Ghana. I will take some messages from our viewers and listeners and then get back to the panel. This one is coming in from Tabio Koshi JB. He says, the initial petition did not contain the names of the petitioners, but it contained the name and signature of their lawyers. He then subsequently submitted the list of the petitioners. Okay, so you're trying to put across how things happened. Well, that's fine. Good morning, Abna. According to the presidency, those who signed the petition against Madam Charlotte Osei were 17. Now we are being told the petitioners are 2 drivers at the EC. I smell something fishy. That's Alfred Morte and Dan Suman. Aaron Babako in Latabia Kwashi says the opposition political party must find their best way to help the sitting president to run the country. Petition granted to the president by the opposition political party must favor the cause of daily dealings of the sitting. I'm not sure I quite get that, but thanks anyway. He says, wow, I can't believe the president did not reject a petition against EC chair which had no signature, date and address of a petitioner. Something is legally wrong with some staff at the Flagstaff House. That's John in Cantonment. Now, whether it's politicized or not, let's not lose focus on the substance or content of the petition. Okay, that's Yemo 2. Abna, my name is Samuel Yaboa from, okay, that's the one. Bobby. This is Samuel Yaboa. He says, I think over the period that Bobby has been on the show, almost all his submissions point to the fact that he has a soft spot for the NDC. He always supports the submissions of the NDC. But I think if Honorable Suhini admits that the president has not faulted in submitting the petition to the CJ, then they should let the law take its course. Ghana is really working again. Anyways, we'll put the brakes on the text messages here and go to the other issues lined up for conversation. I think you wanted to respond, but yeah, the thing about
I mean, it's at least when I'm introduced on the panel, I'm not introduced as NDC or NPP, and I'm not a card-bearing member of either the NDC or the MPP. I say things as I see it. Sometimes it favors one person making the point, it does not favor the other. The truth is that in being objective, it doesn't mean that you would have a middle ground. It only means that based on the facts that are presented, you rather take the left or the right. That's the difference between you being a leftist or being a rightist.
I'm sure the next time you say something that is in line with the NPP, he'll be very happy.
But you would see on this show that there are situations where what I have said seem to support what the...
I know, like but people are just quick to tag. People are just quick to tag.
No, but there's nothing wrong if what I have a soft spot for the NDC.
I'm happy to hear that. Because sometimes they make it seem like it's
wrong.
You have to defend yourself when your views coincide.
I'm not a card-bearing member of the
political party
point well made.
in this country that promoted the 1992 Constitution.
That's yes, that's fine. But we're moving on. Yes. We're moving on, gentlemen. We're looking at the NPP Extraordinary Delegates Conference. It's unfortunate, but we don't have the NPP represented here today. I'm sure they are all preparing to go to Kumasi for tomorrow's conference. But we have it tabled for discussion, so we'll go into it nonetheless, because there are some issues there, of course, that go beyond just the NPP. And whatever happens within the NPP should be of concern to the bigger context of the democratic dispensation of the country, because it's one key player within the space. So definitely we'll look at that. I will start with Prof. On this NPP Extraordinary Delegates Conference scheduled for tomorrow, this is coming against or on the back of the National Delegates Congress that they organized in August in Cape Coast, where some proposals, for their constitution were tabled, and they deferred the adoption or review, if you like, to this upcoming conference. A number of proposals have been put out there, but there are some that seem to be raising concerns, issues about the external branches, issues that the external branches of the party have taken up strongly, which they are saying that it looks as if the proposals being made would, invariably exclude them from contesting in certain party positions, because they are looking at, you either have to be strictly, Ghanaian, no dual citizenship allowed in there. You renounce the other, citizenship you have to be able to qualify as a candidate for any of their positions. Would you want to comment on that?
Well, I don't know the details of their constitutional reforms that they are putting forward. But I mean, the MPP members abroad are not happy with some of the
yes, they have raised
provisions,
concerns,
and
yes.
that one is to do with our dual nationality. Okay, and also there's something I read that before you can stand for an election, you must be in the grassroots. You must be working.
You must
with
have risen through the ranks, that kind of
yes.
thing. Yes.
Well, I think that is a matter for the MPP people. Certainly, they know exactly what they're doing, and it's good to know that they had a Congress not long ago, and they are organizing another one, which means that at least they have the wherewithal to organize those conferences now that they're in government. So certainly, yes. They will go through the motions, they will debate it, and they will land somewhere. You cannot fault the MPP, given that they like to look at things constitutionally. I mean, that's what I read from what they do, and like the other parties. Yes, you are correct. Although they are just MPP, the things that they do will affect us as a country. The MPP is going to be around for a while. They may win elections, they may lose elections, but as a party, as a group, as a tradition, they will be around for a while. So whatever they do as per their constitution is very important. Let's see how this one pan out. It's just a one-day meeting, is that correct?
Yes, I
it's
believe
one day,
so.
is it?
Yeah, it's
okay,
done.
so let's see what happens. They will come out with a constitution in which they will agree or disagree, but let's see how it goes thereafter.
Very well. Yes. Bobby, quick one here. Still on this issue. The proponent of this proposal for amendment, which is that you should renounce your second citizenship if you want to, contest. They are saying that they are bringing this proposal so that their constitution is aligned with the 1992 Constitution. What do you find that justified? Because the Constitution, the Constitution recognizes dual citizenship, right? And I believe there's
limits on
yes,
the public authority
right,
that you can hold.
Sure.
In the MPP has been at the forefront of grassroots political activities. They were the first, I think, before the NDC
to expand
their electoral college, and that was a very commendable thing. I think that was in 2000, after 2008. That was the first time they did that. And so I believe that every time they suggest these things, it's very well thought through, because of they being tagged as the rule of law party that would make sure that everything that they do is consistent with the 1992 Constitution. The other argument for this proposal is that if you are coming to hold certain party positions, it's a preparatory ground for you to hold national positions. Because if you would notice, most of the political appointees, when they win power, end up being people who have either previously held party positions or are holding party positions. And so if you hold a party position and you have dual citizenship, and because of that limitation, you cannot hold certain public office. Because under the 1992 Constitution, you have dual citizenship. There are certain offices you cannot hold. Right. I believe that may be the reason behind they saying this is a training grounds for us to train people to hold national positions. So if we allow you to hold it when there's a disqualification, when there's a need for you to, after the party has invested so much in training you, then why do we, allow you to do that?
Right.
It makes sense if you look at it in that direction. The other aspect of it is that, these people who are outside, they contribute a lot.
Before you come onto the contribution, because indeed it's a key area we need to look at, still on the constitutional provision the party claims to be seeking to align their constitution with. I believe there's a bill before Parliament, and Mr. Suwini, confirm if I'm wrong, that I think it's been, the whole idea is to seek an amendment to the very provision that prevents any person who has a dual citizenship from taking on a public office.
I don't know
so
if
there's
it's
something
a bill, but I heard Professor I think who is saying he's preparing to take it to the Supreme Court.
Yeah,
to take it to Supreme Court. Okay.
There's also the National Identity Registration something. I've not gone through the bill. I know that I saw it and took notes to look at it later.
So clearly that constitutional provision in itself
is under threat.
Is under threat.
The national identity law, if it is what makes you a Ghanaian, I suspect that it may come under that.
Right. So clearly that constitutional provision is endangered.
And I was coming to
exactly. Okay.
Anyway,
so
that if it's under threat and it ends up being taken out of the constitution,
are they going to go back to review there?
Are they going to go back to review it? But that's, like I said, the MPP have demonstrated in so many ways that when it comes to their party machinery and expanding, giving access to everybody, they've led that fight. So I'll leave it to their superior judgment because they will know how to go about it. But the point I was making earlier was that
the contribution,
the contribution by these people who are outside are significant, huge. Before they come, they all go round everywhere, and after they win elections, you notice they go round the whole world to thank them and call for support. They've held the diaspora conference, asking people to come and everything. So that may be the leverage that these party faithfuls who are outside the country would use. I have a friend, he's in Belgium. He personally came down during the elections to, do work for the MPP. I don't think he was paid or something. And after that, he went back. So some of them have demonstrated that love for the party to that extent. So if they are saying that, okay, if you not allow us to hold certain sensitive party positions, then we will not contribute as much as you expect us to. That may be a little tricky situation. But I believe at the end of the day, the love for the party would override every personal interest. And if indeed they are interested in holding party positions, they may choose and holding public national positions, as far as that provision remains in the Constitution, the 1992 Constitution. They may choose to revoke their dual citizenship and stick to one.
I mean, we've had, there are examples to that
extent.
Yes,
there are examples of people who have done that. But it also means that for example, in 2007, when we had people like, I believe it's Boache Jakon and Arthur Kennedy, who came straight from the North American branch to contest for the presidency. That was huge. That was huge.
Audacious.
I mean, well, I'm not saying that they hold dual citizenship. I'm not making it, and I don't know.
On their part to have done,
Boache Jakon is a minister, and I think if you are not, so I'm not saying that, but I'm saying it shows that indeed there have been situations where people have come out of these foreign branches of their party and have come to hold very key sensitive positions.
They haven't had to be trained or started from the bottom all the way up.
And then they have contributed immensely to the development of the party. The person who's been appointed in charge of IT at the presidency, the one who was hailed as the person who masterminded the coalition, he came from a foreign branch, to help in these things. So I believe that the MPP would weigh, their National Executive Council would weigh the ifs and buts and the plus and the minuses of this decision. And I believe the delegates will take a very informed decision on tomorrow.
Very well, yes. Mrs. Sweeney, you can touch on that also, but I want you to address us on the expansion, because they are also looking at further expanding the Electoral College. And as Bobby has indicated, that was first done some years ago, and then the NDC came in and expanded their Electoral College as well. I believe the NDC was even talking about what they called universal membership suffrage. Was that what happened, or there was actually an expansion? Because the two are quite different.
That's what happened.
It's a universal
adult suffrage.
That's what happened. That's what
at the party level before the 2016 elections. There was mass registration of party members at every branch of the party. The register was opened, and people who identified themselves as members of the NDC, were allowed to write down their names, pictures were taken, and a register was compiled. And it was that register that was used to elect parliamentary candidates in all the 275 constituencies.
Great. So against that backdrop, you have that experience, and fast forward to 2017, post-2016 elections. I think one of the reasons, if you like, that has come up, I don't know, by some or leading members of the party, they've sought to attribute the defeat at the 2016 elections partly to the expansion of that, because they talked about the fact that there were infiltrators who came in there and got their way and all of that. So against that background, would you, I mean, what would be your advice to the NPP? Tread cautiously as you move on, or what? Or you think ultimately, yes, open up?
The jury is still out. I don't think that there is any firm, convincing, research on whether or not the decision by the party to expand it the way it did really, affected our party. So I will not be in a good position to give the NPP advice on it. I think we did it. It had its pluses and minuses. As to whether the pluses are more, the minuses are more, I don't think we have come to a conclusion on that. We are, however, changing our register. We are doing a compilation of what you can call a new register because but we are using the same process. At the branch, people are still supposed to be identified, and if they also identify themselves as NDC members and willing to take up a party card, they are to be registered in the party register and be issued with a card that shows that they are members of the party. So I don't think that it is black or white. I think the NPP, if they want to further expand, I'm sure they have considered it and they think it is going to serve them well, and that is why they have made that proposal. I however, think that the NPP seem to be organizing a lot of fanfare of late, and I don't know if it is a change in circumstances, because you recall that I think the last time they had a National Delegates Congress was in 2014, and throughout 2015, 2016, they never had anything of that sort. But this year alone, this is going to be about the second.
You know what, Prof subtly put that across, but you have gone straight to hit it right on the head. He did.
Yeah, so I mean, I just find it interesting that all of a sudden, I mean, 1 year the party can afford to, hold, and these are very expensive exercises, very, very expensive exercises. As a political party in opposition and in government, I know what it takes to organize, programs of that nature. And for the NPP to be able to do 2 in 1 year, and that's just the National Congress, because I know they also did constituency conferences across the country, and it's not small money. Some circumstances may have changed. Some fortunes may have changed in the NPP for them to be very excited about following what they say are their constitutional provisions, even though those provisions existed in the period of 2015 and 2016, but they were not aggressively pursued as they are being pursued now. So we can only wish them well tomorrow in Kumasi. I just hope that in their big V8 cars, as they storm the city, they will, especially those of them who are appointees of this government, will be reminded of the challenge of the poor ice water seller, the hawker on the street, whose circumstances have still not changed. The graduate worker who is still looking for, the graduate, who is still looking for employment. And I hope that they will look at even their supporters, the faces of their supporters, who I'm sure will travel from near and far to Kumasi, and try to engage some of them and see how life is for them. I mean, 1 year on, are they receiving salaries? Are they adequate salaries? Maybe they should go down that well, and they will return more energized to focus on the task of building this nation and making life easier, like they promised. I recall the very famous.
We will need to take a break at this point.
Just 2 minutes.
Okay, Sharia. No, you finish. I'm telling you to wrap up, but we need to take a break here. So wrap up for me.
There was this chorus by Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, the vice president, about the workers are suffering, the nurses are suffering, the teachers are suffering, the traders are suffering. In fact, I read online that some market women came together to give money to a fetish priest so that the gods of the market can be pacified for them to get sales. It is not their fault. And you see, if you look at the budget as we are currently discussing in Parliament, it's just clear why these things are happening. I don't know of any ministry that has had releases more than 50%, at least to goods and services. No ministry, more than 50%.
We need to take a break now.
So I wish them well. I wish them well as they gather in Kumasi the second time tomorrow.
Great. We'll take a break. When we come back, we will wrap up. I have one issue about whether or not the expansion of the Electoral College would necessarily, one of the reasons why it's been, proposed is that it would curb the attempt to influence delegates. We'll look at that and see whether indeed it can do that, or it would only worsen the situation, because our politics has become so monetized that people will do anything and everything to get into positions. But you're watching New Day Saturday edition. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching and listening to New Day Saturday edition. We are live on TV3 in Accra, also live on 3FM 92.7, and around the world online at 3news.com, also on our Facebook page, TV3 Ghana. I will take some messages and return to the panel. This one is coming in from Mystic. He says he's in Sawa Madridju. He says, greetings to you and your listeners. Some of us are not surprised at all about the EC buses probe, because NPP started this orchestration and also made it clear that they will remove her from her office when they were in opposition. The outcome of the probe will not go the way the NPP wanted. This says the Dankwa Busia guy should leave Madam Charlotte Osei alone and deal with the unprecedented hardship and give us a break. That's from Mystic. This coming in, George Kwating Nadenta says, the NDC are just exposing their ignorance on the EC issues. How did Mr. Mahama handle the Shraj former boss's petition? It was forwarded to the CJ or what? The NDC should know that His Excellency Akufo-Addo knows the law and his mandate and has done what he's supposed to do per the Constitution. That's George Kwating in Adenta. Alhaji Hamza in Pig Farm says, let's stop beating about the bush and call a spade a spade. I wonder what Madam Charlotte Osei has done wrong to deserve this kind of treatment. We were all in this country when this woman was appointed and the insult rained on her. The question I ask is, did the NPP call their members to order? The answer is no. Okay. Issues in EC and NCC must be looked at. Now the EC is favored with politicians and ordinary men. What of those to whom no allegation of corruption have been leveled gets sacked with no reason in NCC, whom once occupied top positions? Let me take this from Albert in Ifijasa. He says, if the president and the NPP wanted to remove the EC boss, couldn't the president have transferred her from the EC to another constitutional body, as she was transferred from NCC to the EC? Would there be any hullabaloo about it? What's the fear of the NDC? Did they put her there to do their bidding? You didn't add your name, but thanks for that. My name is Dano Wusu. Okay, no, I'll move on to the other one. So the only thing that saved Ghana in the 2016 polls was the wide margin, but not the ingenuity of the EC. Let's not credit them so much. The illegalities and corruption as stated by them, i.e. the commissioners, shouldn't be left standing. It should be looked at before the next election. Though I believe that the commissioners shouldn't be removed, the allegations should be looked into and corrected. I'll take the last one here and then pause with the messages. Abna, has Interpol stopped working? Can't we spread the picture of the principal suspect all over the world and get him arrested wherever he is hiding by Interpol? I'm sure you're talking about the Central Medical Stores arson. I think we are just doing our usual thing, like the way individual employees helped Boyome to secure 51 million free money. Thanks for your messages. We will move on to our next topic, and we actually have two. I'm sure we could deal with them all. Looking at the Goldfields imminent layoffs and the matters that have come up, the unionized members or employees have had certain statements issued, and the company itself is also speaking. We'll be looking at that. Bobby, start us off with this. This isn't the first time Goldfields will be undertaking this, right? So what exactly is causing this hue and cry?
I always say that when it comes to labor issues, a lot of the agitations are more emotional than legal. You see, the labor law is very clear. The company is not a layoff as they are suggesting. The company is saying, we are going through a phase. We would have to do restructuring, whatever it's called, under the CBA, collective bargaining agreement. We would give the union the required number of notice. We would pay the workers off, and we would open it up that if you want to work with us, it will be on contract yearly basis. Of course, if it's contract yearly basis, it means that then they will be entitled to, the company will be entitled to either renew the contract at the end of the year or not renew at the end of the year. If it's on contract basis, it also means that even if you work for 10 years, because it is renewed every year, you will not be entitled to a package at the end of the period if it had been a permanent employment without break.
Right.
So that is where the union is looking at. But what does the CBA say? What does the Labor Act say? Does it give the employer the right to undertake this activity? The answer is yes. So for me, the agitations would go on. At the end of the day, I know they've petitioned Parliament. Parliament cannot force the company to do what they want to do.
A contract of employment, they say, is not a contract of service.
Exactly.
At some point,
they say, we will give you your package, go home, if you want to work, apply. And then let's do contract by contract basis. And they've stated that economically, that is the only way to make the company sustain their current level of operations. So should we put on the company so much burden that within 5 years it will be shut down, then everybody will lose their job completely, or we should manage the situation? So if the company would decide based on the political underpinnings and social interventions that may come to put a human face, as they call it, to the whole restructuring exercise, then it will be at the discretion of the company. But legally, I don't think that there's anything wrong with what they are doing. They have, it's just like a right of an employer to terminate an employee without giving reasons. It's a provision in the Labor Act. It's been affirmed by a Supreme Court decision. So if you may have worked with him for 20 years, he can wake up one day and say, I've decided to terminate your employment. Wish you all the best in your future endeavors. This is your package. Take it and walk. You can't sue him that why did you worked for 20 years? Why didn't he give you reason? So it's according to the law, and that is the position from where I speak from. It's very clear they have a right to do it. I know they've been saying they will sue. So far, we've not seen any writ. They've decided to petition Parliament. I don't think Parliament would have the power to interfere in a private man's business, because the company is not a government. It's not a government. They've acted in accordance with law. And even if the workers think that the whole restructuring exercise is not in accordance with their collective bargaining agreement and the provisions of the Labor Act, the appropriate remedy is either to use the National Labour Commission or go to court and not petition Parliament.
Right. So clearly, the union, what they should be focusing on at this time is ensuring that the employees get what they are entitled to.
Exactly. According to
exactly. And yes, otherwise the decision to
much ado about nothing.
Exactly. Yes. Prof, listen on this.
Well, the company came out clearly why they are doing what they're doing. They listed a number of reasons. One, they said a 10% drop in the price of gold, increase in their input cost, and they said a big one for them is the unrealistic wage demand by the workers. Okay, they said in the past 4 years they have an increment of 60% in dollar terms, and he also said that's the vice president of the company. He said that for every percentage increase of start wages, shorten the lifespan of the mine to three months. He said the Takwa mine, for example, have only less than 6 years to go. Now, they listed all these things and they said, well, even we are not laying off 1,500. we are contracting. We are getting a contractor who will take over the one of the mines, and we will then recruit them
about
again.
85% of
yes,
those, yeah.
and then they said effectively we are only laying off about 370. So for them, so there's no case. We've gone through the motions, and we cannot afford. In other words, won't pay because I cannot pay. Now there are other implications here. This is the mining sector, which is, when we look at our GDP, it's quite a major contributor to our GDP. And if they are having problems, okay, he started the price of gold, the input cost, both labor and other materials that they use, then it tells us there's a problem ahead for us. And the gold field is one of the biggest in town. So I think this is something we must look at and say, look, what is happening in our mining sector? They're one of the backbones of our economy, apart from agriculture, where they did lay off people because they cannot afford to retain them. So I think this is something we should be worried about. As for this particular group of workers, yes, my colleague is correct. The employer said, I cannot pay you, so I'm laying you off, but I'm going to give you this thing, what you're entitled to. I wish I could not lay you off. They made a point that the vice president pays $66,000 a month, so you cannot say that they don't have cash, but that's another matter. But for me, the wider economic implications of what is happening in the mining sector is something we look at. I hope that we're not going to have more layoffs, because the mining sector will come and say, look, we are going through difficulties. We have difficulty in other sectors. If we have difficulty in the mining sector, certainly something must be done. So for me, that is the way I'll look at this.
Very well. Honorable Sanyini, so there's a petition before Parliament in respect of this?
I'm sure it will be with the Speaker of Parliament. I have not seen any yet, but if they have done that, it will be with the Speaker of Parliament. But I agree with Bobby and Prof that these are labor issues, and they are governed by, law and procedure. For example, I follow that the Chief Labor Officer sanctioned the move of the company. One would have thought that he or she will be on the side of this agitating workers, but he said to have sanctioned the proposal by the company. Is it the case that the Chief Labor Officer knows better or is better informed than the workers and tend to sympathize with the state of the company, and that is why he doesn't see or she doesn't see anything wrong with it? But you also have some of the issues that the company raises being challenged by the workers. For example, Prof talked about the lifespan of the Takwa mine. They say it is less than 6 years. The workers say the records show it's about 15 years, and so it is not correct and it's inconsistent, and they think that they are given a raw deal. But in all of this, I think that even with the Chief Labor Officer not being on the side of the workers, they can still petition the National Labor Commission if they feel they have a case. I think that the National Labor Commission will, even if Parliament is going to take any action, will be more, I think, the right platform to use to fight back if they think they have a case and they don't want to engage in the court procedure. But I think it is frightening as a country that we already have this huge number of unemployed people out there looking for jobs, and we have these things also, coming up. We are told about 1,000, 5,007 of these people will be laid off, and that is just going to add to the already existing statistics that we have of unemployed people in this country, and that is not good. And you also may have followed that the gas distributors and marketers association are also threatening a strike. Apart from the effect that may have on Christmas, they are also raising the issue of job losses as a result of government's policy of gas recirculation, which they think is going to take them out of business. And I relate this to the Goldfield layoffs, because Goldfield also talks about the fact that they are changing their business model, and that is why they need less people to do the work that is currently available. And that is the situation that I see also in this gas recirculation policy. Here you are, government talks about the need to ensure safety and to regulate the sector better so that accidents like we have seen in the past will not be common. And the distributors and marketers also feel that it is going to lead to job losses, it's going to lead to their investment being threatened. And the government says they have made room for their inclusion. And when I look through the proposals, what I see is a move that will require that to still remain relevant, you will have to change your business model. That if you just had a center where you distributed gas, you have to change your whole business model to stay relevant in the process. And that change will eventually also even lead to job losses, because at the place, if you used to have about 5, 6, 7 people, if you change the business model, you may require less.
Right.
And I am just worried.
That is still being
That's still being discussed.
So hopefully,
yes. That's still being discussed.
Yeah.
I'm just worried that, but I'm saying that all these are
That's
threats.
yeah.
You know, these are threats to the already existing serious challenge of unemployment in the country, and I don't think that we should look at it lightly. And that is why I'm saddened that we allow sometimes politics to also frustrate efforts by, you know, whoever or whatever organization is engaging in, you know, productive ventures that can create jobs. And we are discussing mining. As we speak, there's a case in court over the mining of our bauxite. And if you look at what we are losing as a people, in fact, the last time I checked, if that mining operation was not stopped in the Rambo-style manner that it was stopped, at least we would have had 1,500 drivers, just drivers, working today in the Nyinahini area. 1,500 drivers. So if you are even talking about layoffs, 1,500, 1,700 layoffs at the Goldfields mines, it would have been compensated for by the number of jobs that you are also creating in another mining area.
Well, on that particular issue, it's still in court, so we will.
Yeah, that's why I'm not going into the.
That's
why I'm not going to the substance. I'm just talking about
yeah.
how that has, led to the situation where people who would have been employed would have no jobs, and those who are currently employed are also going to be laid off. To when you have a government that promised to create jobs for people.
Very well. So
leading all of this.
That's fine. We are running out of time. We just have about 15 minutes to go, and I would want us to use that time to look at the trend which we are observing in respect of police personnel engaging in criminal activities. But before that, Bobby, I want you to quickly touch on the thing about, the move or the new approach where companies are now resorting to asset light operations. So we are not going heavy on assets. We would rather outsource, get into contracts with you and all of that, particularly looking at contracts, like you talked about, maybe a year's contract or 6 months, that kind of thing. But then the Labour Act clearly says that if you engage somebody as a casual worker on certain terms, after 6 months continuous, the person should be
that's why they break
permanent.
it.
Exactly. So clearly it's not
Yeah.
it's not the best in terms of the worker, because your rights, are not necessarily. I want you to touch on that quickly, and then.
Well, it's I've had the benefit of negotiating some of these CBAs in the course of my private work, and I've advised mostly employers, sometimes unions, on these things. It's a push and pull situation. The employer is looking at the cost of doing business. It's been rising, not since NPP came to power, but it's been rising. And so if there's any means of cutting the cost of labor or owning fixed assets, they will do it. Now, a lot of companies prefer to lease cars, lease photocopiers, lease almost everything, and even outsource their employees to cut costs, reduce the requirement of SNIT, payment of insurance, and all those things. I mean, for workers, workmen compensation and all those things. It comes to the general cost of doing business. If the cost of doing business, the government takes steps to minimize it, it will eventually allow the companies to have more revenue, and then be able to extend some of these benefits to the employees. But as long as we have these things sitting in our law books, it will be very difficult. For instance, with casual employment, So the Labour Act mentions casual employment, temporary employment, and permanent employees. Casual employment, if you read the Labour Act carefully, it doesn't give time limits. It's like what we call by day, or they call by day when you go down to the local terms. So you can be a casual employee for 20
the rest
years.
of your life, yeah.
The only benefits you would have are the benefits that other employees have when they go to work on the site, medical facilities, all those things. The temporary employee, or sometimes they refer to them as seasonal, up to 6 months. Once you cross the 6 months continuously, then the law says you become a permanent employee. So what they do is that we give you a contract for 6 months. You go on unofficial leave for 1 month. After 1 month, you write new application letter. They are within the law. But is it good for the employee? No. But do they have an option? No. Either you take it or you leave it. If you don't take it, somebody else will take it. So the general...
The macroeconomic
exactly.
situation
It's what is allowing the employers to take advantage of this situation.
So we'll end here. We'll be ending the entire show with the focus on the policemen engaging in criminalities. Mr. Sweeney, take us on.
Some of the police.
Yes, some. It's a trend now, really. Yeah. This week, we saw one Corporal Amegashi, and that brings to 5 the number of such incidents this year. Earlier, last year, a number of them. I mean, I tried counting, but I lost count because it was just too many. What is happening?
Well, sometimes I think that what is happening is the fact that people are seeking easy ways out to survive, and not decent ways, I must add. And it's sad that you have people in uniform who are supposed to ensure that people with that mindset are rather checked and you know
they are perpetuating.
So they are rather perpetuated. I think it is very sad, but you know, it is not the first time. Maybe we'll have to look at the recruitment process of policing or police in Ghana. I mean, sometimes you wonder if the process is transparent enough, and if we are getting people getting into the service because they don't have any other alternative, or because they really want to be peace officers or security officers. Because most of the time I think the latter is the case. They don't have any alternative. They don't wish to be peacekeepers or peace officers or security officers. It is just the choice that is available. And maybe given another choice, they wouldn't have gone in to wear the uniform. And that is a result of what we just finished discussing. And maybe this just by the way. That's why I find it very sad that we seem to be engaging in some serious job replacement since this government came into office. I don't think that is the solution to the unemployment situation, where you sack people you think are not favorable and pick people you think are favorable. I mean, what you are doing is simply shifting or if you like, reclassifying, you know, or reprofiling the unemployment situation in this country. So I think the recruitment process is one, and that can be checked if we have more job opportunities. Then we will know that those who choose to wear the uniform really want to be peace officers.
But isn't it the case that even if you choose, even if you're going in because you don't have anything to do, there is a duty on the service to ensure that appropriate background checks are done?
That's why I was coming to. I mean, apart from you going into it because that is the only alternative you have. I mean, if they have the due diligence done, and you are okay, you pass the test that the standards that they set, and you get in and you don't have that appetite, the attitude that is required to be a professional, you know, police officer, you can be swayed, you can be tempted, you can pass all the standards at the entry and then get corrupt in, you know, whilst you are in practice. So it is not just enough to have the due diligence and the standard sets. It's also the mindset, why you want to join it. And that's why I'm saying that it has to be a choice that you make, and not because there's no other choice.
well.
Apart from the due diligence process too is important. Just wrapping up on that. I think it is also important to the extent that we have heard, especially politicians in the past, talk about how they get, you know, people into police service as a way of showing that they are good politicians. I mean, in 2008, it became a very big issue, I recall, when the then Information Minister, Samuel Boateng, talked about how many people he had facilitated their recruitment into the, you know, police service. And it hasn't stopped. And you know that even when this government came into office in January, February, thereabout, they asked some police officers who were undergoing the process of, you know, being recruited to go home, because they thought that the procedure that was used favored some political party activists. How assured are we that the current process that is ongoing will not also favor some political party activists?
On this issue, recruitment process is clearly one of the areas we need to look at, and also even whilst in the service, protocols around access to arms, because this man, for instance, the Corporal Amegashi, apparently supplies his gang with arms.
He's in charge. He's a member of special arms something units in Tema.
Exactly. So the protocols around the release of arms is an issue. Why is it that one person alone is able to, you know, oversee that kind of thing? So, Prof.
Yes, I think we need to set things correctly. The vast majority of the police force are not involved in
definitely
criminality.
A few bad nuts.
That's a few bad nuts. And also, it's not also clear whether we are having an increase in real term of police committing crime, or the reporting now is now more. Okay, there's more reporting of the case. That notwithstanding, certainly, yes, the recruitment process may be important, but I'm not pretty sure whether that will have stopped those people for doing what they did. They may just be criminals who just found their way.
They came in with their minds.
Yes, you will find criminals in every profession.
Sure.
Probably this is the one for the police, but the police is a serious one. There are some things you don't do when you're a policeman. The policeman is supposed to catch thieves, but not you are certainly to become a thief. That's why it's so serious. So certainly, I don't think the police force, entering the police force is a last option for most people. It's not good to be a policeman. In the olden days, when we are going to school, you go to the police force when you don't have anything else to do. But now to enter the police force is very competitive, given the serious unemployment situation. So
it's very competitive, but it's not like people want to be there.
Oh, well, a lot of people want to wear the uniform. And if you're allowed to intimidate people and get some petty bribe here and there. So certainly to be a policeman now is a good profession. Just some few guys who are messing things up. I'm not sure. If this guy is supplying arms, this is a serious matter. It's not about us going to steal some chickens. He is actually aiding more criminals. So that is a very serious case, and it's up for the police establishment to do something about them. But that notwithstanding also, I really think that the IGP and their people must really look into this very carefully. That's a lot of good police. We have a lot of good policemen. We can forget about the little money they get here and there on the road. That is something a lot of IGP have started to stop for so many years, but I don't think they have succeeded. But for some of them actually supplying arms, now they are using the arms now for stealing things, but what about if they're using the arms to do more serious things? Okay? They are in charge of the arms. So I think the IGP must look at this very carefully. It's not an ordinary criminal offense, it's a serious one. And so that they can root this out and put in place the protocols about how these arms are being delivered and distributed to their officers.
Very well, thanks, Prof. Bobby, you have the last word.
Yes.
Take us home.
Well, I'm a product of the police service. In that sense, I'm a biased boy.
Thanks for disclosing all of that.
I say this passionately. It's unfortunate that a few bad apples continue to remain with the police, and like Prof said, you would find that in every other situation. But I will look at another aspect of it, commending the police service for how swiftly they acted, because the gentleman was arrested the next day whilst he was on his way to Ho.
Right.
I mean, somewhere in the Volta region. Yes. So I must commend the Greater Accra Regional Police. They acted swiftly and they didn't hide the identity. You know, they've exposed the person, and for me, that's a very good sign that they are ready to deal with the rot that is in the system. And I'm sure, like, this is not the first time we've had policemen involved in these days, but the whole year, there are about, let's say, assuming there are 10,000 police officers, the whole year we will hear about maximum 10 engaged in these things. I'm not holding breath, but I'm saying that it should not take away the shine from the police and the fact that they are doing a very good job, and the fact that at least when they are arrested, they expose them that these are police officers who are engaged in these things.
It's just maybe we are holding them to a higher standard given the kind of role they play.
But you see, for me, if it's been said that we should try and do due diligence. As a country, we don't have the system of doing that due diligence. Even they said in the olden days, when you want to marry somebody, you go to the village. When you mention the person's name, they will take you straight to his or her house. You get every information. But now, it's not like that. People meet on social media and then get married. So I believe if it's possible, they have clinical psychologists within the police service. Before every recruit passes out, they should have a one-on-one section. The people who are trained as psychologists will be able to know the actual intention of the person or why the person is getting into the job. It may not be able to eliminate all the bad nuts, but at least it will sieve the situation, and that may be a cure to some of these things. I want to touch on something that Suhini said.
Quickly.
He passed the comment that when the new government took over, some recruits were, because they thought, I think that's quite unfair, because I know that they were taken out because it was found that they didn't have the certificates.
Not all of them.
Okay, not all of them. Okay.
But they decided to let everyone
okay.
go.
So it wasn't all of them.
Okay, so some of them, they went through the screen and then saw that they didn't have the certificate. But all in all, we trust our security to them, and so we hope that we would be. Before I go, there's a lady called Fafa. She's in Lakeside Estate. She's an avid listener of 3 News and avid viewer of the show. So she wants to extend her greetings to you. Okay. I have done that.
Thank you very much. Yes, thanks for delivering the message.
Bobby's friend.
Thanks. So thank you so much for making a date with us, viewers and listeners. We do appreciate your time. Thanks for spending your Saturday morning with us. We'll be back same time, same place next week. But until then, let me say a big thank you to our panelists, Mr. Al-Hassan Suhini, Honorable Member of Tamale North Constituency, Bobby Banson, a legal practitioner, and Professor Clement Jidonu, President of AIT. We'll see you next week. Have a good weekend.